This meeting to order for the Warrenton City Commission and Marina Advisory Committee joint session. Has a roll call been taken? I think just because the board is there any way we can get the lectern moved to the side? Otherwise, I don't get to see our harbor master. There we go. Okay. Thank you. I think this because some of the board members may have not met the full city commission or vice versa. So if it's okay, we'll just run down a short just introduction. We'll start with the harbor master.
Yeah, Jessica McDonald, the harbor master here.
Jennifer Fowler, chair.
Mike Valseefer.
Lila Gable.
Bill Kerr, vice chair.
Larry Osmond.
Awesome. Thank you. So with that, the roll call has been taken. We'll move on to the redesign presentation discussion. Is that the harbor master?
Yeah, I'm just going to introduce it a little bit here, and then John Forrester, our engineer, will take it from there. I just wanted to thank you all for having us here. I'm really excited to present this to you tonight and get your feedback. I wanted to highlight a couple of the redesign goals for you. Just letting you know that we're focusing on reviewing the 2010 master plan in Warrenton and increasing our slips that are below 30 feet to 30 feet. We have a lot of 24 and 28 foot slips that are not really practical for the current size of our vessels. So that was one of our goals. We're also working on just realistic plans that we can implement in phases over time, and also looking at the best construction material for the Warrenton Marina and how we can provide cost estimates for that. Then in Hammond Marina, after reviewing the 2005 master plan for Hammond, we really focused more on a cohesive layout for the marina and focused on traffic flow, safety. Everything is really congested at the launch ramp, and that was identified in the 2005 master plan. So we came up with ideas on how to reduce that congestion and enhance marina facilities for all of our users, and find ways to incorporate the future potential recreational fishing pier into the layout of the marina, and how to provide parking, restrooms, and facilities for that. With that, John, if you want to take it away with your presentation.
Yeah. Thank you, Jessica. We want to especially thank the Marine Board and the City Council for giving us this opportunity to share some of the thoughts that were incorporated in this slideshow. We also want to thank PBS, Hodwells is sitting back here, and Kyle Ayers is the owner of the company I work for that built this. And I have a script to go through, and if we really hustle, we probably will get the slideshow done in about 35, 40 minutes. It's kind of long and covers both marinas. So the first one, it shows City of Warrenton North Coast. And you may be saying, who's North Coast? Because we've never dealt with them before. But actually you have. I've done many of your projects. I was the construction manager for your wastewater treatment plant. I've done several marina projects, done the E-dock, the commercial dock there. But so our company has gone through several buyouts, and that's why it says North Coast up there. It's the same company and same people. We work with other engineering firms like PBS. Can we go to the second slide now and look at the elements of the Warrenton Marina? As Jessica pointed out, they want to increase the 30-foot slips in the Warrenton Marina. There's a marina reconfiguration according to the Walker-Macy master plan that Walker-Macy had. And we wanted to show you some typical layouts. I hope everybody just take a quick peek at these because they're not important now. And looking at decking materials, the decking materials for the walkways and the finger piers are very expensive. And then finally, we look at the cost. So could we have the next slide, please? Yeah, so this is an example of the reference material that we use for the marina layout. And I wanted to focus on a comment right up there at the top left, just underneath the title, because this shows that there is critical measurements that are done when you're designing these things. And so there, we wanted to show you that. And also some of the depth criteria, because there's depth criteria in each of those. I apologize for the mask. I hope I'm still clear. My wife is immunocompromised and I try not to take anything back home to her. I don't want to give her any gifts like that. Next slide, please. Yeah, and we go to the, this is the one of the latest informational and engineering guides, boat launching facilities, the California Department of Transportation, the recreational department. Newer boats need larger slips. Larger slips mean more use of the marina. There's more income for you when we use larger slips. This is just another example of reference material for the marina layout. So there we've got two professional guidelines that focus directly on the marinas. Now, if we go to the next slide, there you'll see one of those that I just showed you. And that comes from, the artwork there comes from Walker Macy. They are the ones that has set up a plan that show, if you look on the far right-hand side of the picture, you'll see three lines that go down at about a 45 that come off of the road. And those are the new gangways that they proposed. They're not going to, that's not feasible now after talking with Jessica a little bit more, because there's some other things that are involved that are very expensive. But the reason we show you that slide is, you see those U's at the bottom? One of the gentlemen, this gentleman right here, was showing us or asking us to explain those. And it's very simple. You can do this as a, like a Sudoku puzzle if you want. It's a bad comparison, but let's say you have 1,000 feet there along the sea dock. That's the dock closest to the south edge of the marina. I have 1,000 feet, and let's see, I want to pick a 35 foot or a 40 foot. And you can see the vertical lines there. It says 30 foot, 35 foot, 40 foot, blah, blah, blah. And then you can just divide that 1,000 by that number, and you'll see about how many slips you could put in there. And the slips are very valuable. But this slide is, we left it this way because the fairways are critical to boats maneuvering in and out. We certainly don't want accidents. We don't want any cause for complaint from other boat owners against the city or against the marinas. So whatever the layout is finalized to be, whatever final design that the Marine Board and the City Council, whatever you choose, that's really one of the key things that determine what we can put in there. Let's see. Yeah, and this is the 2010 Walker Macy Master Plan. And I just wanted to show it to you because that's another reference material we use. Can we look at the next slide, please? I have trouble reading that. Maybe I can read that one. Oh, well, so be it. Yeah, the red schematic, those drawings there, those used, show the lay length of two slips, two finger piers in the marina. Now, between those two finger piers are two slips that your boat can go into. And that shows you a variety of slips. You can put that in for any length. I have walked all of your walkways with a wheel. I have walked all of your finger piers. I have tons of records on that. But that's just a general sense. When we consider the fairways as well, then that gives us a slip count. And if you you looked at that with a super critical eye, which master plans, you don't really go into that much detail, but up in the upper left-hand corner, I have a box there, and the master plan actually left out some of your slips. So we have a little difference there of opinion about these available slips. Okay, can we go on to the next? Okay. Again, this is an aerial photo from Google Earth, and it shows several items. The red lines that we talked about earlier that go down on the right-hand side, those are the Walker-Macy proposed gangways. And Jessica has convinced me that it would be very expensive, too expensive to change the electrical service locations and the gangways from where they are now to do that. And it might cut down on the amount of slips that are able to be used.
John, could I highlight
Yes.
something with that? The reason, the thought process there is just that that is a federal levy. So to get the permits to move the piles in a federal levy is extremely difficult, and would require surveys and slopes before and after moving those piles. So it would add a very huge cost onto the project.
Sure.
And it also would limit us from phasing this in a way that would be a realistic accomplishment for staff. We only have so much money in the Warrenton Marina. So to move the gangways, we wouldn't be able to utilize the rest of the marina possibly while we were doing that process. And since we'll have to take this in pieces, it would be extremely difficult to move the gangways and maintain access to the docks. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. These are all very, very expensive repairs. And so we want to be sure we do the most durable, the longest lasting, we talk about it later, but we don't want to gold plate anything. My family is, or my wife's family is from over in Idaho, and we go to the Coeur d'Alene Resort for dinner some evenings. And they have a beautiful marina there, but it's all gold plated. I mean, it costs 3 or 4 times what we're talking about here to give a serviceable product that we can enhance the economic outlook for. So that's why we do that. And again, I always put this little caution down in the lower right, lower left. Calculate the fairways first so that, and you can see how the opening is there where the boats come in. It's narrower there than if you go to the west end where the red lines are. It's wider there. So there's no problem with the fairways on the right-hand side because you have more real estate to deal with. Could we have the next slide, please? So these are preliminary estimated costs that we've showed you. They're only for this project. They're not for another marina somewhere else. They're just for the okay. So I think that is that. No, we have the slide 8, our next slide will show the estimated costs. So if we go to that one. Yeah. And you look at that, and you'll have some questions. You can actually read those. I can't because I don't have eyes anymore to see it, but you could read those. But the reason we put those in there is so that you can see the steps that are required to replace, like, say, the C dock, because the upper right-hand side says examples of typical costs for the C dock, approximately $2.2 million. That takes care of the dock, the finger piers, all the electrical revisions, and the water systems, that kind of thing. The part. There's some new codes there that cost a couple bucks, more than they used to. And then also the permitting different now than they used to be. Okay, so while we try to be current with the costs, they fluctuate a lot. While we were preparing this, I was looking at some costs from one of the vendors, and just in 3 months, they'd went up like 3%, almost 4%. Just to give you my wife today to get eggs. $11 a dozen. But anyway, price fluctuating. So the time to fill that all out is when we've decided on a project, or Jessica says, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to build this deck or dock or finger piers, whatever. Then we look at the components, spread, and then what does that all cost?
So this spreadsheet has quantities. It doesn't have actual prices on it.
Yes, just
Okay.
has quantities.
So this $2.2 million, while we have a breakdown and itemized
That's cor-
requirements, we don't actually have the actual costs.
No,
So less than, okay.
no, we
So this
have.
is the spitball cost, 2.2? This isn't an actual, even though there's itemized items on phase one existing CDOC replacement, this is not an actual cost. This is just a,
No,
Shot in the dark?
this has a empirical. We take it from other jobs, other projects we've done.
so it's an
And-
actual estimate from your firm.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it's not. Now, I mean, we could say 2. At 1.8 or 1.9, or might come in 2.5. We just don't know. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Let's keep going.
Okay. Yes, sir.
That costs for materials and labor. to construct.
Yes, yes. It's a construction cost.
Right.
What it would cost.
And you built this up using all of those items, you just could not display them because any one of those could change dramatically.
Yes.
What's important is the bottom line number that you're presenting.
Yeah, yeah,
Correct?
yeah. And the contingency.
And 2.2 is only for CDOT.
Just the CDOT, that's great. But when we get to it, you will see there's only a couple more slides when we get to it. It's a complete revision of what you've got. The gangways and everything.
So there's new pilings, new gangways.
Oh, no, the gangways we will reuse the gangways.
So new pilings,
Pardon me?
new pilings.
All new piling, yeah.
Okay, all new docks, all new electrical, all new, just, so you're basically ripping the whole thing out with
Yeah.
sands, gangways, and you're putting a new one in.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's what.
I got my head around that. All right, let's go to the, oh,
Does that 2.2 number, does that include engineering, permitting, construction management?
No, it doesn't include engineering or construction management. Those are pretty small costs compared to that. You know, they're not.
define small, because I've seen engineering cost $500,000.
Well, it's small in relationship to the overall cost, maybe 10% or 15% of that.
Okay,
So, yeah. So somebody else had a question? Oh, okay.
let's keep moving. Next slide. There we go.
Okay, there you go. There's the walkway, the dock walkway. There's no pilings visible. But you see the construction of it. You see each portion of the construction. It's a hot dip galvanized metal. It's fiber grade walkway, fish friendly. DSL requires that now so that predator fish can't hang out underneath your docks and eat the other fish. There's a rub strip there. There's a wood cladding on the outside, and if you look there, the bull rail is continuous. The whole length of it is all bull rail, and that's part of what strengthens it. And underneath, it has eye bolts that hold it to those pilings. And if you want to see how hot dip galvanized performs in the salt water, go look at the commercial e-dock, and they're called strong arms. The triangular arms that hold the finger piers in place as there's like 11, 10, the finger piers. Yeah, there's 10 or 11 of them. They have these not aluminum, galvanized steel strong arms. Look very good. They've not, I don't know when they were installed, but they look good. So, okay. On, yeah, we talked about code compliance and we talked about permitting, yes. Yeah, what we do as engineers is just put together a list of the project materials, review all of the numbered items, and work with design engineers to be sure that we are not over designing, or the term I've heard is gold plating. We don't want to gold plate anything. Some areas do. Like I said, Coeur d'Alene was an example of that. Could we go to the next? There's the walk finger piers put together so that you can see them with pilings. And there's a little triangular space right there on the finger pier. Now, that one holds the finger pier where it's supposed to be. It gives us a place to mount what's called an lighthouse pedestal there. There's several different kinds, but this is the one I've seen the most used. And it has all kinds of stuff in it: communications, water, electrical, boats that are coming off of that. And once you install those, the utilities are all in a tray underneath the walkway there, and they come up that triangle. That kind of shows you what it looks like. That's the last slide we have. Okay, let's go on. Okay, with the CDOT done and the utility upgrades or schematic block upgrades, there is an economy of scale. We know that if we can, we would like to also present the idea of doing the other docks, just the power application requirements, not redo the whole dock, just the power supply units on both of those gangways. Because what that'll do then is you won't have to redo it as you're crossing with the sea dock to go in there. And also by doing this, the pile driving barge, Bergerson's barge is pretty big if they were the ones to be able to do it. But also I worked with American Diving, and they got a pretty big barge too to go in. So what they wanted to do, or what they had figured on doing, was the first dock that goes in, the sea dock, they would put the cranes on the levee and work from the levee down to put in the pilings and the associated floats and finger piers. So Walker Macy only had one dock per gangway, and there was no crossing over or redoing work. So I just wanted to make sure you had saw that, and you saw that earlier with the red lines that crossed. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is where I get to get a drink of water. And if you have any questions, let's talk about them. Dive into that's a poor term, poor choice of words. We'll get into the Hammond Marina.
Yeah, estimate cost per foot of that dock. You showed us that for the guardrail and all that. You know, estimated.
Yeah, just I mean, don't quote me on this, but I was looking at some 30-foot sections of it. And for a 30-foot years by the walkways, finger piers that go off of it, about 35,000 per each 30-foot section. Those, you know, you have a lot of trouble nowadays with, excuse me. We have a lot of trouble with wood deterioration, and you can see that in several of the local marinas around. You can go up to there and see that. And these floats, we're talking about replacing them. HDPE pipes that are completely, they would be buoyant, take caps. You're going down the creek on an inner tube. But these have styrofoam filled. There can't get any water in them either. So they're styrofoam filled, and they're longitudinal to the construction of the breakwater. So they have one on each side. They're very stable in the water, and with the right piling, it's tremendously safer to walk on.
Let's make sure
Okay,
we get through the Hammond one. I want to make sure that we get through the presentation so we can have discussion with the committee.
I'm sorry.
I just want to make sure we keep going. I want to be very
Me
time.
too, me too. I want to keep going too. All right, so now we're looking at the elements that are in the Marina for Hammond. Improvements to the sea dock there. Don't get those confused, because the sea dock there is a lot cheaper than the sea dock in Warrenton. Addition of 2 covered fish crab cleaning stations, hard surface walking path between the cleaning station and the ADA. Addition of 1 ADA fishing pier on Eastern Jetty, widening Airedale Street 10 to 12 feet to the south. Addition of bollards, chains for pedestrian vehicle protection. Of 2 restrooms, one on the west side, one on the east side is shown. Next slide. So to begin with, Jessica had some really good ideas, and I couldn't figure out how to get those ideas out of her head. Paper. So what I did is we have all kinds of drone shots of your basins and stuff. So what I did is I took drone shots and I sent it to her and said, write on this, what do you want? And she did. It's wonderful. Now we know where each of these things go that she asked for. Next slide. So the first thing is the sea dock, the repair of the sea dock. So this, you'll see, has a little, it's not covered. There's no walkway on it, but it would probably have the same fiber grate decking. But why this is so much cheaper is because there's no utility in the bottom. We don't have to feed each of these finger piers with utilities, and the fact that this is quite a bit shorter than the sea dock. So, okay, cost to expand it. Okay, all right. Yeah, smaller. Note that the project, of course, would be publicly bid because the cost savings are in public bid as well. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, this is the cost of replacing and expanding the sea dock, just like we did with the other one. We looked at the costs and realized that, hey, just in the time I was preparing this, they went up 3-4%. I can't put costs on it because by the time one of these goes to bid, we will have we will have something that twice as expensive. So the steps, what an engineer would look at. Now, I can't read that. I can't read one of those. No. Yeah, but there's a note in there about ADAG construction, isn't it, on the far left, far right? Yeah, yeah, okay, next slide. Okay, now we look at the addition of 2 fish cleaning stations. We look at construction of those are just a post pillar, a roof, and of course it has to be for the winds we have here. And that's all by Romtech. That's what it would look like if it was installed. Can we go to the next slide, please? That's the cost. For two of those, it's approximately 300,000 each, so about 6.6 million. And that wouldn't take as much permitting. I'll show you at the bottom. That's a typical Quest V bid worksheet. We bid everything electronically, so we don't have to run it through all kinds of different protocols and different people. So next slide, please. Here's the walking path between the fish cleaning stations and the ADA fishing pier. The cost for the walking path with ADA approaches $8,000. But note that this includes the continental crosswalks, and then at where each place where there's a continental crosswalk has to have an ADA constructed ramp. So that will be built into the price. Can we go to the next slide? Be required. Okay. It doesn't include engineering contingency or permitting. Materials and construction estimate. Could we go to the next? There's a addition of a fishing pier on the eastern jetty plus the parking. And that's about the space it would take. Budgetary estimate, $2 million. And that does not include the actual engineering. They would, well, you would be changing the configuration of the jetty geotechnically. So could we go to? Mhm.
They were talking about using breakwater as it heads north, because the breakwater is over sand in that portion. And then up here, we extend beyond that north, not moving west on breakwater holding. Does that make any sense?
I haven't looked at, I looked at the whole area and thought, what would be the most protected, what would be the safest to put people that were disadvantaged somehow, what would be the best way to take care of that? That's the only reason there. We'll put it anywhere you like.
Fish access and
Yeah. Yeah.
Use the breakwaters.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're talking about the breakwater on the north side?
First east part of the breakwater.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's where that is. Very, it's right there on. Before,
Here, Tom. It would go more like this.
oh,
Yeah.
so, well, that, we haven't looked at that. We haven't looked at that, sir. So, I'm
just.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I just want to make sure we don't.
The problem with that is, I hate to bring up anything else, different than what we've been prepared to talk about, but uh, I walked out there on low tide, and you have to go almost out to the point of that to get past the sand. It's all sand in there on low tide. And that just wouldn't be real good for people to fish or to,
Well, I mean, I've personally been out there and sound depths.
Uh-huh.
You get pretty deep quick. As
Oh.
long as you have pier sticking out. from the
Yeah.
house,
okay.
You can get fairly deep water.
Okay, maybe I was at a particularly low tide and didn't see it, but there were people out there playing with a kite and
Yeah, East Beach definitely. That beach is-
next to the, right next to the breakwater there. Yeah, yeah. But
That wasn't originally, looked at spots.
if
What-
they,
what- In this, we're really just looking at the parking and how we can support it and not
Yeah.
on at all at the design or really location, just how we can have facilities for it.
yeah. And if you decide that you want it wherever the state asks you for it, that's always excellent. Let them tell you and that helps you with the permitting and everything else. So, yeah, we would look at that pretty cool. I can't tell you that the budgetary numbers are correct.
Sure.
Okay, yeah, okay, could we have the next slide? So those are the steps again. And because this structure is critical, it's so important to people, it has to be ADAG construction. And so we want our contractors to be pre-qualified or pre-selected. So there's about a 3 or 4 page form we have them fill out, and we go to their bank or whoever to verify these things. And when they do that, qualify. We have to have qualified because it's ADAG construction. We want to be sure that all state and federal guidelines for ADAG construction. Could we go to the next slide? That's kind of what it would look like. This end would be that triangle that you saw Jessica was talking about. And we can either go down the jetty with the jetty stones, or we can go down for a ways and then come out like you were commenting on. And this all from publication, from USA Publication Guide to the ADA accessibility standards. And you see kind of in proportion how the cutout windows and all that would look with the gentleman in the wheelchair. Could we go? Now we're looking at widening Airedale Street 10 to 12 feet to the south. And that takes mostly AC. Cost estimation is around 200 to 250,000. That's almost like building a whole nother street through there, but there are advantages to that. And that's what Jessica was talking about the traffic and being able to handle it efficiently. Okay, so we go to the next slide. This one, this is the addition of bollards and chain for people and vehicle protection. When you start upgrading and making things real nice, you might be pulling people out of the drink, you know. So what other places do is they put bollards and chains, or they put real fancy rails. There's all kinds of ways you can do that. This is the cheapest way to do it, and it's one of the ways that the Oroville Dam in Oroville, California, it's the world's tallest earth-filled dam, has that row of bollards and chains all the way across the top so that you can't fall into the penstocks. Okay, could we go to the next? Now we're looking at restrooms. And those red circles are the general locations for the restrooms. So what will they look like? Let's go to our next slide. These are all 6 stall restrooms. They're all ADA, all of that. And this is courtesy of Public Restroom Company. I misspelled a word. Oh, well, lots of words misspelled. Go to the next slide, please. This is another restroom courtesy of Romtech. Again, it's 6 stalls and looks very nice. These restrooms, if we can go to the next slide, we'll figure out the costs of them.
Single restroom costs.
Yeah, 2 of them. No, if they do, yeah, that's true. If you have 2 of them, that's with all the contractor labor, the materials. I have seen where you can buy those restrooms for about $500,000, but that don't include any of the materials to site to get you need a contractor to come in and he'll charge you about half or 3/4 of the original cost to be able to do that. So those are, I don't want to say, oh, we can do this for $1 million, give you 2 restrooms. And then all of a sudden you say, hey, why'd you tell us that? I want to tell you somewhere that we're comfortable with the numbers.
I have a question.
Sure.
There's no showers included in this because we have camping out there. So these restrooms don't include showers?
These do not, but it is not hard to add one to these. Is that?
We would likely need showers added to those
Okay.
restrooms, at least by the camping area, although in the Hammond Marina, everyone is kind of supposed to be self-contained. We don't really have a lot of water out there, so that would be a little tricky.
Yeah.
We currently don't have showers really in the Hammond
Sure,
Marina.
look into it. Thank you. Okay, could we go to the next slide? This is just me being crazy. That's Point Roberts. That's a marina. If you were to throw a rock 300 miles to here, it would land probably there in Point Roberts. You're looking south there and you see their breakwater. They've got a real nice breakwater there. It's the island that you're looking at is the San Juan. It's the end. What is the name of that? Victoria, Vancouver Island at south. And you go 300 miles south of that, right there, right here in Hammond, Oregon. And I just think there's so much hidden in these marinas that Jessica really focused on trying to help get some of that income back out of these. That's being full used. If you look at it, there's condos around it, stuff like that. But also, we never budget or anything like that. But Jessica and I have talked about putting a breakwater, a real breakwater out in front of the opening there that covers, that is open to the tides and things that come in, because that's what really damages your marina. So can we go to the next slide, or isn't? Oh yeah, this is the end of the presentation. We thank the Warrenton City Commission, and we thank the Marine Board. And thank you for your good questions. And if there's any questions, I'll happy to answer.
Any questions? We'll reserve the right to recall you if necessary, but thank you.
You're more than welcome to call.
Go to the Marina board here. I have a couple of questions. First off, was this the first time you guys have seen this too?
Yes. We got an email too.
Okay, yeah, but this is the first time it's been presented.
Presented.
Okay, so we're all new on. That's harbor master, the Hammond Sea dock. Remind me, what's its purpose compared to other docks?
Currently the Hammond Sea Dock is, has slips that are about 18 feet in length in total, with a few that are 20 feet. We don't have any boats that really go out in the Columbia River that are 18 feet. That's not a safe craft size for going out into the ocean or most of the wave action in the Columbia. It's currently not really usable. And this design, having the tie-ups on the north side of the dock, that's a recommendation from the Marine Board. By including that, we would be eligible for Marine Board funding to redo this dock eventually.
The placement of the fish, cleaning, tracking stations. So I know this was brought up. I think I brought this up a year or two ago. Because I mean, I believe some people in the committee had at one point expressed concerns about the deadening of vegetation at the marinas, smell, attracting the hornets, all those stuff that comes with dumping raw crab boiling water into the vegetation. And at the time, I think it was decided not to go that route, but there was a suggestion that why do we allow that when we have a vendor session in the city that provides that service, so to speak. So I guess I got two questions is, to what point would we be causing competition with our own tenant? And two, to what degree, why was the southeast station chosen in that location, not closer to where the pier will be?
Just for water services, the thought was just not, we won't have to run the water as far. I don't know if we're kind of hoping to get at least one of these padded concrete areas in. You'll see it in our proposals for CIPs to put in just a concrete pad with proper drainage, like some kind of drainage system. That way we're not letting all the runoff go into the grass. And that was kind of the thought process. Well, if we could at least get that pad in, it would be close enough to the current water services, kind of until the Hammond water line is done. I don't know how much we already have kind of issues in the marina with water.
Yeah, part of the problem with the Hammond water line is that it doesn't connect to the street. So if we were a lot of connections, it would have to be a new connection. At least that's what's been explained to me in the past.
I think that is correct, Mayor. So a couple things you mentioned. One is, as our harbor master has alluded to, the infrastructure out there needs attention. And if we look at this redesign, we're probably going to have to capture some of that as we do the work as well. That's just the true cost of this. And some of that will be new lines. That is the challenge here of if we're going to tie into our storm system or our wastewater, we're going to have to do a lot more work to get it there because it is a ways from these connections. The other question you'd had about a current vendor versus doing crab on site. People like to have both options, and in my opinion, we should continue to offer both options. I don't see it necessarily as a competition because people do both, and it doesn't seem to have taken away from the vendor, but we could definitely review that. We understand that some people prefer the vendor over doing it themselves, and some would prefer they actually come there because they want to prepare it for themselves. So it's a question of if we take this away, some people then may say, well, we wanted to come specifically to do this ourselves. It could actually hinder some of that usage, but I guess the question is, we're not making money off of this, the vendor is.
Yeah, that's the other question that I have related to that is, with camping, we're not, I mean, we make money off of that, right?
Yes.
But we don't provide nothing for service somewhere.
Yep.
Not to say that in the future we would, but
Mhm.
with having two stations, I guess my question is, Hammond's always had a long history of having, put it lightly, scoff laws. You can post signs and say, don't do this, but people will do it. Everything from garbage dumping to, whipping wheelies in the parking lots and in the grass. So it is a secluded area. So I guess my question is, if you're going to have two stations and two bathrooms, and I want to say this just for the record, I'm not trying to attack staff that we have now. I'm just saying that we have struggled to maintain the bathroom we have it. I've been in it a couple times in the last year, and there's been some stalls that have been out of order for months, maybe longer. And so having two very expensive public restrooms and the maintenance and upkeep that takes, And considering that there's gonna be requirements to ensure that we secure it at night so that we don't have individuals who aren't fishing, either dwelling in them or going on drug fueled races and doing what they do with Fitz Robinson, like ripping out toilets. I get the convenience of two, but I'm just trying to figure out realistically, what are we looking at being maintained?
And I,
Operate and then also enforce, because if we have folks that are not using, say, for example, hey, I parked my boat here and I don't want to go to the city's pad, it's crowded, whatever. I want to drink beer, whatever, you know, which is also breaking the law, and do it right next to my boat here at the Marina, and I'm gonna dump my crab water on the grass. Are we not just spreading the problem?
well, these are exactly the reason we discuss these things now, because you talk through those scenarios and try to find solutions before you get there. It is my belief, if you tie, and correct me if I'm wrong, Harbor Master, but if you tie the one to the pure usage and the other more to the dry camping usage, and we mentioned showers, most likely, realistically, once these have been established and you have them, you're probably going to have somebody on site, staying on site to keep track of this. So just like we have at Crothers Dog Park and elsewhere, we have a camp host on site that is monitoring some of that usage. You can put timers and locks and key codes on the bathrooms. Obviously, if it's tied to the pier, you wouldn't necessarily want a key code because it is for public use. But you do have, if you have somebody on site, for example, in an RV staying there taking as a camp host, their responsibility is to make sure that the bathrooms are kept properly maintained. I see this as the future as we redesign and upgrade this. There are some pieces we are going to have to add, just like you said, because otherwise we're not doing ourselves any favor if we can't maintain and keep these up. I think carefully considering the option of showers, instead of possibly 6 stalls, we may have to go to something like 3 stalls and a couple showers for the dry camping area, you know, and making sure we're accommodating both, because I believe some of the conversation for the future has been helping to upgrade some of that dry camping. And of course, then some of the cost for maintenance and such could be added to the dry camping value.
So where are we having all this? Like canneries at retreat, where are we putting all this, you know, crab fat, guts and all that? Where's that go? Do we have the wastewater infrastructure to?
The answer is
Yeah.
right now, no. But obviously, we would have to do some kind of pretreatment to our own, because if we're making others do that, just like we have grease receptors for our food carts around the city, we would probably have to have the same infrastructure set up for our own pretreatment of these types of things.
After we'll look at it, Hammond is a location that they're gonna come. Even if they can't cook their crab there, they're gonna come because there's no other location close and convenient as Hammond. I'd like to see a central place where people that don't want to have the vendor cook the crab, they can cook their crab and that water won't run off and kill the vegetation, which causes sand and rainstorms to fill up our basin, costs miles of money to dredge. That's kind of what I'm after, not as I see it now, and Jen can probably address this way better than me. I've only seen it a few times, but on a really busy day, there'll be 12 parties of people at 12 different locations, cooking crab, having a nice time, having their pop-ups up. But that water is dumped in the ground.
So, I mean, just, before, does anybody have any questions on any of your topics? I don't want to beat this up. Okay, so, I mean, we do have the vendor, and I'm just for legal sake, I would prefer to have Tyler present that. If there's any questions related to vendor competition and all that, Mr. Fowler, if you mind. I know in the past I talked to you about when we were talking, when I was suggesting possibly a non-landed crab ban, so to speak, in terms of putting it in and all that.
Yeah,
And you didn't seem to have much.
I don't think competition wise, like they were saying, people that don't cook their crab with us, that if you remove the ability to cook crab there, they're not going to bring us their crab. They want to put their own spice in their pots and all that kind of thing. And it's, for a lot of people, that's part of the whole mystique, is doing their own little crab boil. So the competition I'm not worried about. I think the challenge here that is really going to be hard to overcome is when we're talking crabbing, it's a tide related activity. Everyone comes in at once. So if you try and have one central pad to cook crab on, it's not gonna fit everyone most likely unless it's gigantic, right?
Support too.
I mean, I don't know how we do this because I still think even with two pads, you're going to have, like you say, Hammond scofflaws, you're gonna have people that want to go off to the corner and do their own thing. I think that's what the challenge here is gonna be is, do we need pads or could you put just grates in the ground that say dump your wastewater here? And is there a way to tie that into the sewer system and just say, hey, you know, when you're done cooking, don't dump your stuff in our grass and kill our grass, please get it here. I mean, I'm looking at, we're gonna spend $600,000 on pads for a seasonal activity. It seems expensive. So
Answer my question. Yeah, so you're not opposed to it, so to speak, it's just you have concerns about traffic flow and stop loss.
yeah, I mean, that's the big problem right now is everyone piles up by the fish cleaning station because it's close. And then they also use the fish cleaning station as a windbreak because, and predominantly during crab cooking season, we have east winds. And so people are trying to figure out how to get their crab cooker positioned so the flame doesn't blow out in the east winds. So that would be another consideration. If you do build some sort of pad, put like a cinder block wall about 3-4 feet high that will block the wind, and that would automatically draw people to it because they'd have that windbreak to get out of the wind. So
I've lived right there for 30 years and commercial Dungeness fished, and I watched the people year after year. I think if you created something like what Jimmy said, maybe something that's gravel, you wouldn't necessarily have to have gravel with some blocks around it, and then you have a designated spot to maybe dump into a holding tank or something. Pumped out or filtered into the bay, a settling tank or something like that would be a good way to go. Because like he says, they all come at once. They're all there. They've got their cookers. Yeah, kind of a designated spot for them with a windbreak, you know, maybe a couple of spots so they could have a little cartage, you know.
Okay.
And then have a designated spot for them to dump that, even in a 50-gallon barrel that settles and maybe leaches out slowly or something. Maybe we can come up with some plan. Okay. But as far as looking at the utilities, that's kind of the picture right now. As far as stopping people from wanting to do it, you could say you can't cook here, that they just won't hang out. What about?
I was just gonna say gravel makes me a little nervous because it's really difficult to clean. And once the wasps get underneath that gravel and with all the pieces, it's not good. Yeah, that's why I really advocated
Smell pit.
for a concrete pad that can be pressure washed. But I loved your point about like a septic tank. We actually have one underneath our current fish cleaning table. And if we did put that within, you know, a certain distance, I'm sure we could tie into our current septic tank and just pump that out so it wouldn't go back into the city's water.
That'd be
The fish would fly down the chute, but it's just a thought.
yeah.
I see it
Great.
going on year after year, so.
So I guess my question to Marina is of these, so first off, this is just kind of like a phase improvement plan, less a master plan update, correct? Because I don't see traffic layouts, camping, anything like that. All right, so what's the Marina? What do you guys think? What's your priority? Which are the projects you're most jumping into and which are the ones that you're most concerned about?
Well, excuse me, Hammond needs a major address, that is for sure. Sorry. The one thing that concerns me is if you bring up the picture of Hammond again, we're only using a slice of the whole basin. I think Mike and me are probably, and Tommy are probably the only ones that remember what it was like when we were kids down there. I think there's a lot of revenue not gonna happen just if we just put back what we got. I think you need to look at in phases, like a phase one, and then do some more dredging, maybe add on some more and bigger.
So I hear you correctly, your priority would be actually to phase the docks moving east,
Yes.
which is more protected.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Warrenton needs rebuilt. Warrenton needs rebuilt big time. And we're talking about money that we don't got. So.
Talking about this hammer, won't you know?
It's both.
Well, my big priority is looking at this whole picture and studying for a while is the E-dock. Now, E-dock is the beaten up old commercial dock, right? Okay. Yeah, the E-dock is, we have 22 boats there. We have 22 boats, and I think Jessica's presentation, you probably all read it. There's 22 businesses that they're not just there in the summertime, they're there year round. They depend on that spot for their $2-3 million investment and their businesses. And it needs some serious work. And we've passed it together for a long time now. And if you walk through it, we got 2 slips we can't even rent right now because got to drive a pie in. We can't get a pie in because of the permit process and all that. So my idea would be to do what we can to E-dock to keep them businesses going. The Hammond Marina, it's a 1-month pony. You get her money in a month. It's not a year-round rental. They pay their 1 month. Some of them pay year-round, but it's a 1-month pony. So is Warrenton's Marina month pony, but the E-dock. And if we had the funds to extend it down farther to the north, it'd be rented the next day. Because I'm sure we have a waiting list.
So if I understand you correctly, you're stating that for Hammond, you don't have a specific family, and it's just a 1-month pony, keep that in mind. But you're saying Warrenton's, it's the commercial piers that should be the priority, and to expand that capacity to get more year-round revenues. Is that,
Well,
am I hearing that correctly?
yeah, first we gotta take care of what we got.
Yeah.
That's a big chunk of money.
So
But
you're not opposed to C-dollars?
no, but you gotta remember, C-dock is 1-month ponies. That's all it is. Have to get a place. So, I mean, no, it's not opposed to it.
We just paid that review.
No, it's the inside one, the one that's smaller commercial boat.
No, I know, but he's talking about E-dock, which is outside.
Yeah, so F is the new dock
Okay, E-dock goes to the north, yeah, the one that runs up the other way.
and E-dock is the old commercial dock.
Sure.
About 40 years old almost.
Yeah,
That's the one I want to discuss.
Mhm.
where we just bought the
Yeah.
property on the south end of it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll say it. I disagree that it's a 1-month pony. Cause we're, it's 2 or 3 months at least, but May through December, there's people there. And if there are more facilities and more stuff, if it's built up, I think it'll come. But I also agree that Warrenton is more important and that, we have the money to do stuff in Hammond. We need to figure out how to get the money to do some of the stuff in Warrenton. And I have concerns that if we do make the upgrades in Hammond, it's gonna make some of the commercial fishermen upset in Warrenton. And that makes me a little bit nervous. So to me, the priority is trying to find money to do some of the stuff in Warrenton, which we're working on, obviously. But it's a lot of money.
I haven't walked that E-dock since I used to work on the fishing boats, so it might be good for us to walk it. Go take a look ourselves, because I haven't seen it, but I used to fish off E-dock, shrimping.
yeah, I think it. Have we had any estimates of what it would cost to extend the commercial basin in Warrenton? I mean, that sounds like it's a moneymaker.
Yeah, we got some informal quotes just to see if maybe we could do some design work in this budget year. We were hopeful maybe it'll come in low enough. And they were between 300 and 400,000 to start design work. So that was a little shocking to us. That's a big dock. It's a lot of activity. It's a lot of engineering. So hopefully, yes, we would love to explore extending that. Just, I don't want to put a price. I mean, probably 2 million to extend it, depending on how much extension you're talking. And with piles, I would say probably 2 million. And we're looking at, between 2 and 3 million right now just to rebuild what we currently have. So we will be exploring like a Department of Transportation grant to hopefully fill in the commercial pier and extend EDOC and replace EDOC. It's a really big ask and a big stretch, and we would have to have matching funds, if we were awarded it. So it would be very challenging for us. But something like that, a big project like that would be ideal for the Warrenton Marina. It would, EDOC with its 22, that's only 22 boats, pay 25% of our revenues in the Warrenton Marina. So that's a huge number. And if you think about doubling that and if we had 44 slips and we're talking about doubling those revenues, I mean, that would support the whole basin.
How much?
20, it's 170,000 a year about that dock brings in. That dock would pay for itself in about 10 years, just off of user fees. If we redid it for 3 million or for 2 million.
I believe that commercial dock is more important than spending the mass amounts of money on the 1 month dock in Hammond or in Warrenton. Those docks in Warrenton are beat. I've got a boat I keep there. And it's horrific, but it's a 1 or 2 month deal. That's the reality of it. And I see spending money anywhere else, but millions on fancy docks for the ducks to live on.
Okay, so you're there with commercial prioritization.
Yes.
If we had money, like theoretically, if we had money to contract out EDOC and those repairs and get that replaced, and staff could only focus on the inner basin, I would highly recommend checking out the new section of HDOC that they're putting in right now, because something that's 30 feet like that, our staff is very good at repairing and rebuilding.
You say that HDOC, you said it was?
Mhm.
That's what you say today, that's your staff.
Yeah.
Okay.
They are doing an incredible job down there. I think they've got 120 feet, and then they're working on 3 additional 30-foot fingers. So we will no longer have any missing finger docks, hopefully, by the end of, I don't want to say by the end of 2025, but pretty close. This is in Warrenton. Yeah. Yeah, they've got 280 feet built in Hammond for DDoC. It's incredible.
So we
Yeah.
basically see 10 years, but nothing to show for it. So I wanted to say, for the record, wow.
Don's design for these docks and his availability, like he is so good at keeping material in front of our staff and just keeping them working. And they are working so hard. They're so incredibly proud of everything they put in the water.
And if I may, Mayor,
Yeah.
I love that the energy in this has changed in the last 2 years, that it's no longer how do we just maintain, but how do we expand? But if I can shift the conversation a little in your minds, it's not a Warrenton or Hammond. This is the future complete redesign. And in this meeting, you are prioritizing a little bit, but you don't have to say, we only can do this, because this is us saying, do you like these design ideas? Which ones do you like or not like? Because as we have amazing staff finding the money, finding options, asking urban renewal possibly, we will tackle hopefully most of, if not all of this redesign. But the question before you is, are there things in this redesign you don't like? Questions about location, 2 bathrooms. These are the things we'd like you to consider. And I know it's a lot to digest in this meeting, and there may be a follow-up, there may be a recommendation from all of you at the Marine Advisory Board as you look at this and ponder it more deeply of, here's where we'd like to go. I've been at some other ports recently, and I think it might be in the next year or so having you guys go on some field trips to get some ideas of what the future of Hammond could look like with urban renewal behind it. And then also Warrenton with hopefully some significant change in our commercial docks. I think there's a very exciting future out there, and I get you would look at these price tags and you think, well, if we have to pick one, what is it? I don't think you have to worry about that today, though. I appreciate you prioritizing and saying yes to the Warrenton commercial dock first, but look at the big picture of, these are all the pieces we're proposing. What of this do you like or not like? Because this is kind of a design plan. We're starting the process. We'll finalize it and then hopefully move forward with a lot of these pieces.
But I think a lot of those ones that you go visit, they got that four little word that we're afraid of, and that's important. So you get more funding.
You
and
do get
can
more
do More stuff.
You do, but there's pieces we can steal, if you will, from ports that we don't have to say, well, it's just because of funding. I think there's some things we can do and not have to say, well, shucks, because we're not a port, we'll never get there. So don't let those four little words discourage you.
I'd be one of the first ones to say, let's go for it. If we could separate, and that's one thing that's never been looked at. It's always been one whole thing. If you could separate, say, Hammond from, or even the inner basin in Warrenton from the commercial. I don't know if you can go half port, half marina or what. I don't know what the options are out there. But I know there's a lot of money federally if you put the little port word in front of everything.
Well, I don't know why we couldn't just say, we are a port, just say the Port of Warrenton, the City of Warrenton asset. I mean,
I
it
could
sounds
say
like
I'm
those
6
things
foot
match
two,
more
but
than
till I stand up.
I mean, we are in politics, right? So. Lila?
Well, I guess I really think that if we don't do something with Hammond, we lose all kinds of credibility. We have been putting out that Hammond is going to get something done to it. We've raised rates, giving that kind of a promise, saying we're trying to do something. And I believe that if we did the CDOC portion and at least did one restroom and one crab thing, maybe to start, then you're going to bring in a lot more people. And I think you're going to bring a higher spending people if they've got nice restrooms and a crab cooking area and a nice place to put their boat. That's just my opinion.
Thank you.
I know it's kind of a city thing, but the Iredale, both the widening and just the parking lot in general in Hammond would be really big for people, I think, because I don't know if you guys have been out there, but like people sound like they're breaking axles driving through there. It's like, it's really bad. Like I'm always being like, so I like a lot of the stuff. I like the parking lot by the pier. I was just like, oh, I didn't notice that when I looked at it before. That's kind of more parking is nice. And I don't know. I just wanted to add that, I guess.
I have a lot of questions. I've been trying to take notes. I guess one of my questions was related to like, do we have revenue goals for each area, and how does that play into prioritization and, long-term strategy?
Yeah, so my biggest concern, because I love the numbers, is whenever looking at these plans and we're talking about, we're basically reducing the number of slips because we'll have to increase the size.
Mhm.
And I've just been calculating the billable square footage, and there's no significant change. Most of them are like CDOC now, we're only able to rent 10 slips because they're only 18 feet.
Mhm.
And if you look, the revenues for even if we only had 10 30-foot slips are much more than what we're currently getting. So yeah, even reducing, and then in Warrenton, if we redid CDOC and made those 30-foot slips, we would lose a pretty large number of our 24-foot slips, but we make up for that by billing for 30-foot slips instead. So we don't lose any billable footage with either of these plans.
Okay, and so the primary mechanism for revenue is square footage of the boats. We don't really have any other, like
Linear feet of
verbiage.
dock.
And then, I know in Warrenton, there was the dock designed to allow for water. Is that better? For water or for electrical within the dock, but not in Hammond? What, is that just because the types of boats are different in each marina?
Yeah, we don't see a lot of our boats in Hammond using a lot of electricity. We do have electricity on A and B docks still in Hammond, but about 6 years ago, we had to remove the electricity on D and E dock in Hammond. And we haven't really seen any large loss of revenues or, people still want to more out there. A lot of those boats are open guide sleds that don't need power.
Okay, so that would be one way to reduce costs too, is if we prioritize the guide boats that don't need a specialized dock.
In the Warrenton Marina, more of the boats are there. And Warrenton's a lot more protected.
Mhm.
So the boats tend to stay there a lot longer. So they are there during the raining season and they do need bilge pumps normally
Okay,
if they have an open sled.
I guess that's my next question too, is like, do we have an ideal like optimization mix of guide boats versus personal boats that will help us achieve those revenue goals?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think catering to boats that are at least 30 feet in size really helps.
That's the,
Yeah, that's
table
kind of the
stakes.
minimum.
Okay.
There's really only a handful of boats under 30 feet at this point. And we don't really see them getting made much larger than that either. 30 feet seems to kind of be the perfect 30 to 32.
Okay. And then my next question was, with all the work that's being done right now, how does that translate for a redesign? Do those docks, can they be reused, or like, how does that work?
Yeah, all the docks that Don, I mean, I can't say enough nice things about him. All the designs could be easily moved to the Hammond Marina
Okay.
into those wind docks if we needed to, or they could be reallocated other places in the marina. So most of what he's building is all 30-foot docks, which can be moved to G dock, M dock, and they can be shuffled around. They'll last for a year, they'll last much longer than it will take us to be able to afford to replace some of those other docks.
Okay, thank you.
So we've had there was a task force that didn't provide nearly the detail that I was hoping out of it, but we have a Marina committee now, so I don't think a task force is necessary. But there seems to be new energy in the Marina department. There's also a new board in community advisors. When we start talking about road realignments and builds, which are CIP projects, because you're not talking about an overlay, you're talking about a rebuild in that case, or at least chunks of it's going to get rebuilt, maybe the rest overlaid. And then probably putting in infrastructure for planned future use. So if there's going to be showers at the camp spots, and I'm thinking Hammond right here, or whatever, you probably want to put those lines in when you're ripping everything up versus build a road, cut it up, and then, let's take the hit now until we can get to the point to make sure that the infrastructure lasts longer. But I know there's been suggestions of taking the berm out in Hammond, moving it, and making the road realign there too. Changing the layout where the campsites are, the whole 9 yards. Obviously with the fishing pier, that may change how parking is on the east side. Sounds like there's some traction for an eastward expansion, which would make more sense. I don't know why the marina was ever built on the west side, probably because the mine laying docks in the 40s, but the east side is the most protected side. The west side gets beat to hell. And so those docks will always it'll be harder use, so to speak. And with the Warrenton one, it doesn't sound like there's a real need for master planning per se, as much as we just need to figure out our fairways, our distances, and how to expand the docks, correct?
Yeah, having an addendum like this to the master plan, if we could include this, would help us get some of that funding.
Okay.
Just to have it in the record there that we have updated it, because that's kind of an issue we've run into with a couple of the Marine Board grants, is they really want to see updated master plans from us. So this will kind of help with that.
So with Hammond, I think we need a broader update than what we've got. I think that's almost an urban renewal project of its own. And I think urban renewal could pay for that update, simply because I think the marina is the critical key to the urban revitalization of the Hammond district. Doesn't mean we can't do improvements to the docks there now, which they desperately need. But I think in terms of if you're going to start talking about where we're going to put showers and all that, those are projects we're not going to be paying for in the next 2 years. So it probably makes more sense to figure out a more thought out plan with a lot more community input and mandate. Because I think if Hammond is going to be more than just commercial, we get all our revenues in Warrenton for commercial. So commercial, I agree, commercial probably should be a focus. But Hammond doesn't have commercial docks, and there's a certain aspect of it not having commercial docks that's advantageous because we put all our transient lodging tax dollars into that because it's not commercial. So I think with Warrenton particularly, you mentioned something about, was it EDOC get contracted out and then staff could maybe do C and then we could start talking about possibly a northward expansion?
Yeah, Dawn and I have been in conversations with staff already, planning out our maintenance projects for the next year. And, you know, this budget year will finish out the majority of HDOC, which was the most critical in the assessment. And then we're strategically planning based on that assessment from last year, where to go next. And I think right now we're looking at MDOC. MDOC, has probably one of the best electrical infrastructures in the marina that was recently redone. And we believe that we can start on the end. Staff are pretty confident that they can build at least 400 feet a year. We've already surpassed that this year. So I'm sure that we can keep on going. But
To what degree can we have staff work on Hammond docks too?
they've done 280 in Hammond, and I believe his goal is to have 320 done by the end of the month.
Because I mean, I don't know if it got fixed, but I mean, it's been a while since I've been out there, but I remember the launch was disconnected basically and held by cable wire.
Yeah.
Has that been fixed?
Yes, that was like, it was Valentine's Day that
Okay.
broke through. It completely left. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good improvement. So,
Yeah, it's been chained and secured. We will do some more repairs in the spring. Right now, there's just too much wave action for us to get underneath that. But as soon as the water calms down a little bit out there, we'll get that fully fixed.
I think, I mean, Lila's point's well taken in the sense that, you know, we need to show something for Hammond, but I also agree that we need to make sure that the people who actually pay for most of our, you know, the long-term tenants, the commercial docks, has some sort of work. And I think if staff, as you're suggesting that potentially staff can build out that interbasin for a large portion of it at least, that maybe instead of spending 2.2 on that dock, we could reduce it, do it some more, most of it, some of it, I don't know, in-house, and reprioritize that money to, you know, things that could widen the slips, make more money. I noticed the Maverick sitting out there, not in a slip, you know, where that one, was it the Master Chris that used to be parked underwater? You know, I think those commercial docks is something that, when I think about it, our waterfront revitalization plan and some other plans that are not related to the marina specifically do call for a northward expansion of our docks. So for commercial purposes.
You do. Yeah.
So is this report something that the engineer put together, or was this something, I know your name is on it, but is this the plan for staff or?
The engineer put this together. Yeah.
Okay. But I'm sure you're probably getting a bunch of input from us to refine this proposal.
Yeah. And just a lot of the things that we're mentioning here are things that we're going to be discussing during our CIP planning. And I have presented the CIPs that staff will be proposing in the next month to the Marine Advisory Board, and got a lot of support on those.
With this discussion though, does that change your CIP prioritization or change the CIP at all for what you're recommending to your board?
I don't think so right now. I think everything in the CIP plan is pretty, I think you'll really like it. I think there's a lot of good stuff in there. Some of it is from this report. Some of it is projects that, you know, in the Warrenton Marina, our CIP funds are so limited for this next year. We're just focusing on piles. And that's what I think in the Warrenton Marina, in the inner basin specifically, just repairing piles and replacing piles that are no longer there and having staff work on the docks is probably the most what we can afford.
So when I walked the docks with you a couple months ago, commercial docks, was it FDOC had piles that were broken, sheared? Have those been replaced with the contract we issued?
So FDOC is the new one. So they've got all new big piles. And then EDOC, the whole backside of EDOC, we replaced all the piles there this year.
That was the one we had that limited contract for?
Okay. That's what we had. The limited permits were for that. And now this next year, we're going to be proposing to replace the ones in the piles in the actual finger docks, because we have just hopefully going to be acquiring the permit very soon for that.
Have the brow logs, have replaced those yet?
The brow logs on FDOC, no, there's no,
They're working good.
they are working fantastic.
So Mayor, if I may, as far as next steps, if I might recommend, you know, this is a preliminary draft on a redesign, and it might be well served to have the Marine Advisory Board kind of put together a recommendation on what they saw tonight. And then from there, kind of bring forward a final draft, if you will, of the redesign for the commission to review for a second time now that you've had a look at it. And then once that's been approved, hopefully, especially like the Warrenton side of it, add to the master plan. But the Hammond side of it, you might be putting that in with kind of a bookmark, if you will, that more to come with urban renewal type of situation where you have a start to the conversation. But obviously, once urban renewal starts going forward, there's community input and conversations around that. So it wouldn't necessarily mean that this is the final on the Hammond Marina per se, but these are the bookmarks, if you will, to move forward. Some of these pieces we may get in place before then, but the things like you mentioned, like streets, bathrooms, things like that, that we don't have the money yet for, those conversations might continue.
So I've been hearing a little bit of a morphing from this conversation we've had and from the harbor master, from the people here. From what's being presented to what looks like what people want to do seems slightly dissonant. And so I just want to make sure that we're not just rehashing this with a couple more, numbers and kicking it out, but that when this report comes back to us as a final, that the Marina Committee's had a chance to actually express their desires and needs as they've expressed here, and that those are included, or should I say, that plan forms to that. That makes any sense?
I would recommend that the Marine Advisory Board at their next meeting go over this in detail and then pass that recommendation back to the engineer.
Yeah. Is anybody okay with that?
I had one question. We've talked about a private, public merger out there on the, I guess it'd be the east side.
Mhm.
And where you'd have whoever would build out there would dredge the east end of the thing and put new docks on that end, with some being open to public and some for the private. Have we put any fingers out there to see if there's anyone even interested?
Well, we couldn't do anything that would be private. It would have to maintain public access. That's part of the conveyance from Congress.
Okay, well, we could,
But I know there was interest in a fuel dock being put there,
yeah.
and that was potentially going to do that. That person has not reached back since the initial. We didn't inquire to them, they came to us, but they have not responded since we.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I agree with the city manager's suggestion. I think the engineers probably heard, and the consultants have heard enough to get a start on some new. I think going over with this Marina Committee, refining these more towards the priorities that you have on this, kicking it back to us. I think I'm getting the sense that there's some synchronization between us and you on this. And then we'll, I think, adopt it as a, the Hammond can be a bookmark, but we need to have something that's in the plan so that we can chase funds if something comes arise, and Warrenton the same story. But I will say that I'm hearing the consensus, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody here, but I'm hearing the consensus that CDOC is not the 2.2 ask for urban renewal potentially, but maybe that the commercial docks is the ask. Am I hearing that correctly? And that staff might be able to handle C? Larry?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Well, we can't spend urban renewal in Hammond. I know that. So not yet. Okay. All right. So I'm glad to hear, though, that staff has been making great progress on that and is able to do those dock replacements, because I know that was something we tried to get started years ago to no effect. So I would just want to say thank you for your leadership on that.
I just wanted to say that if we do restrooms out there at Hammond, I'm back on Hammond again.
Sure.
It would also benefit the park.
Yeah.
And I've always thought that the park should be included as part of the marina. I think it would give the Hammond Marina a lot more opportunity to do things that maybe we could produce more revenue, but it would need all of it. I think people consider the Hammond Marina, that park area, as part of it automatically, like this. I don't think they think of it, oh yeah, this belongs to this department, this belongs to this department.
Sure. So we've got 1 minute, but I'm going to ask real quick since I have yet. When you talk about revenue generation of the inclusion, what does that come to mind for you? What kind
I'm
of-
sorry, say that again.
When you say revenue generation, what's coming to mind in terms of the inclusion of the park for revenue?
Wedding, maybe a wedding venue, well, some sort of a building that we would put out there, which we've talked about a lot in the past, where we could do weddings or do bring in, maybe somebody could run it, they could do a meeting hall. The, the senior center, the community center is nice, but it'd be nice to have something right there on the water where I think we'd draw in a lot of people that would come in want to do their meetings there or do some kind of events there. I think it'd be a great event center.
I know that's in the updated plan and I
Yeah.
agree with you. So we are out of time, but thank you all for coming. And I think we'll take a short 5-minute intermission between the start of the meeting. So.